round of business. Tonight, I focus on a new Ford. Quentin with the black and white on grey imports, and Tiff Needell loses another motor race.
I'd rather be liberated. I find myself captivated.
Now, after a summer of anti-car madness, I'd like to begin the series with the tale of the nurse from Bath, who saved for 6 years and ditched her boyfriend so she could buy a Dodge Viper. But we can't, because Top Gear is a responsible consumer programme with its feet very firmly on the ground. We'd like to begin with the Viper, but this week sees the launch of what may well become Britain's best-selling car.
'Cause you and I know it's all over the front page. You give me road rage, racing to the best days.
It may look like the shuttle from a Romulan battle cruiser, but it is in fact the new Focus, Ford's replacement for the Escort. So, where to begin? I think not with the wood, but the trees, the little details that surprise and delight.
See the creases? They appear to be there for show, but in fact they're there to show a driver where the front of the car is. At the front of the car we find a Ford bed, behind which we note there is a lock for the bonnet. I've never seen that on a car before, and I've also never seen child locks which need a key to operate them. Someone has been thinking hard about the design of this car. It must be said the under-manager for tailgate design has been thinking hard too. Look, he's put the tail lights way up here so following traffic can see them more easily. He's also given us a remote control device for undoing the boot. And he's given us a boot which is easily big enough for dogs and suitcases and things. Where the Focus really starts to surge ahead of the competition, though, is in the back. See what it is? I fit! I'm 6'5" and I fit! Easily! Unlike the Golf or the Astra or the Renault Megane, the Focus has independent rear suspension. You see, if one back wheel runs over a bump in an ordinary hatchback, both back wheels bounce up and down. But with independent rear suspension, one stays perfectly level. This improves comfort. It makes the car quieter, and best of all, it transforms the handling. This car is big fun.
99 red balloons floating in the summer sky. Panic bells, it's red alert. There's something here from somewhere else. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye, focusing it on the sky.
And then there's the new and wonderful engines. You've a choice, of course, including an unwelcome and inevitable diesel. But I'd go for the 1.6 petrol, which will do 41 miles to the gallon. It shifts as well with a top speed of 115. It's quiet too, even under full acceleration, and remarkably smooth. And that, I think, sits well with the interior ambience. Behind the heavy design, there appears to be some real quality. It's hard to think of this car as a Ford. If you want a traditional sausage and chips Ford, the old Escort lives on for 2 more years, but really, you've got to have the Focus. There's a range of body shapes. A 5-door hatch, like this one, a 3-door hatch, a 5-door estate, and early next year, a 4-door saloon. I can sum up the Focus very simply. It is more spacious, quieter, more comfortable, much nicer to drive, more economical, and possibly safer than any other car in its class. It is superb. The end.
There was a time you needed mates at the mint to buy used Mazda MX-5, but not now. Boatloads are being shipped in from the land of the rising sun. The cronky Jap economy makes their used sports cars look like barking mad bargains. And the best news of all, they're all right-hand drive.
This mass immigration of motors is known as the grey import game. Almost every second-hand Japanese car you can think of is coming to Britain, and most of them are arriving via Ireland. Spitting distance from the Dublin docks, this yard holds everything, from Nissan Micras and Toyota Starlets to Mitsubishi FTOs and Subaru WRXs. They're all Jap spec, so they've got lots of ritzy bits like air conditioning, and they might as well be Jap money. They look that cheap.
Like this 92 Toyota Celsior, or the Jap equivalent of the Lexus LS400. It's showing 50,000 miles and is 12 grand. That's 6 grand less than bottom book. How about a Nissan 300 ZX? 90G, 67,000 miles recorded, 7,500 quid, or 2 grand less than book.
Plus, more Mazda MX-5s than you could shake a torque wrench at. This is a 93, done 30,000 miles, 6,750 of your pounds, and that includes all taxes and VAT.
This year, 50,000 grey Japanese imports will find British buyers. Wide-eyed punters are flocking to auctions like this one in Dublin. All you do is stick your hand up, pay the money, which again includes VAT and all taxes, slap on some temporary Irish registration plates, drive it home, register it in the UK, and banzai.
Now, you know Uncle Quent never pays retail for anything, and he loves a bit of a bargain, but I'm duty-bound to tell you that I don't reckon this particular deal is the blinder that you think. Firstly, none of the mileages on any of these cars is guaranteed. How do you check them out? Speak to the previous owner. How's your Japanese? If you do find a service history, you'll be lucky, and you won't be able to read it because it's in funny writing. Secondly, the Japanese crash cars like everybody else. So the only person who's going to tell us if this has been on its roof in Nagasaki is Mr. Ying Zhang Wong, and he's a bit far away. But then I suppose none of this matters one jot, as long as the cars are cheap enough. But are they? Let's find out.
10 grand for this 90G Toyota Celsior might seem cheap, but it's Japanese spec, which means it's a completely different car from a UK model. We're talking different engine management, suspension, brakes, gear ratios, lights, tyres, even glass. And those seats are velour, not leather. No amount of money would ever make it UK spec, and you'll never know if it's been crashed or clocked. Still sound like a bargain? Then there's this Mazda MX-5, 92, 50,000 miles, 6 grand. Sounds good, but it needs a new speedo, new tyres, different fuel filler, and because it's been sitting on a boat for 3 months, a damn good service. We've just spent £1 grand, so at 7,000 quid, we still know nothing about this Oriental orphan's past. Rather you than me.
And here's another thing. Because of the numbers of cars like this coming into Britain, very soon there could be a crash in their residual value. So when you come to sell your Japanese imports, you might find it isn't worth quite as much as you thought.
I think the future prospects of residual values for Japanese imports is bleak. The main reasons for that are quite simple. We're going to see a large increase in supply into that marketplace, and we may see a decrease in the quality as well. But there are so many unknown variables at this point in time that when we look in the future, the only way that we can see residual values going is downwards.
But, I hear you say, surely, if the world, his wife, and their cousins and their aunts are queuing up to buy grey imports, they can't be such a bad deal after all. Maybe Uncle Quent is being a bit too cautious this time.
I bought a 1991 Mazda MX-5, imported from Japan from an auction in Dudley. I paid £5,000 for the car, expecting it to be quite a saving. I've also got a non-imported Mazda MX-5 in the UK, which is a UK car, and my plan was to sell this car and use a Japanese one and keep a bit of cash in my pocket. A month later, the prices have plummeted, and both cars are virtually like the same price, and I'd be struggling to sell either.
It's Subaru WRX. The UK equivalent is the Impreza. I've had some bad experiences with it in respect of it was broken into, and it took me 6 weeks to get a window into the country direct from Japan. And servicing is a bit of a nightmare as well, whereby you can't actually get these things serviced by your Subaru agencies, as they're not allowed to touch them.
I had an accident with one of the alloy wheels, and when I contacted the Mazda dealer to get a replacement, I was told I'd have to wait 6 to 8 weeks. Consequently, I had to buy 4 new wheels for it, which was a bit of a shock.
Overall, the Japanese imports do look a very good bargain at the very beginning. You can see adverts saying 1,500, 2,000, even more than that, and people get very excited about it. But there are problems going to be down the line, and one of them is reselling your vehicle, and all of those savings could be wiped out at the point of resale.
Now, I apologise if all this sounds too cautious, too sensible by half, but I don't reckon the savings are that significant, plus there's a lot of hassle and a lot of risk. If you want to buy something that's not available here in the UK, like a Subaru WRX or a Mitsubishi FTO, then by all means do it. But buy it from a specialist dealer who knows what he's doing and can offer you some form of guarantee. You see, used cars are all about money. And unless you're saving shed loads on this lot, it just ain't worth doing. Sorry.
A Corvette convertible, a ragtop Mustang, a '59 Cadillac. These were the country club classics that drove the post-war American dream. But for the average working Joe, reality came in the shape of the Tri-Chevy.
Well, and now you got me started, don't you leave me broken hearted, 'cause I love you too much.
In 1954, General Motors was the biggest car maker in the world, and Chevrolet was the meat and potatoes range. But for 55, Mr. and Mrs. Middle America were about to experience a revolution. You know, they say that the only part of a 54 Chevy that'll fit a 55 like this one are the interior door handles. Here was an entirely new automobile, the first modern mass-produced American car. It looked like nothing else on the road, rakish and rocket-esque. This was the 50s, the jet age. And just in case you didn't get where the stylists were coming from, they stuck a great big silver bird on the front. Subtlety? They couldn't even spell it. Make no mistake, the all-new 55 Chevy was a big, brave gamble by fuddy-duddy old General Motors. They were abandoning best-selling virtues like dependability and reliability and staking everything on style and performance.
Well, the 55 had more horsepower than anything before it, was relatively inexpensive. It was a $2,500 car. So back then, the 55 Chevy, and in turn the 56 and 57 and later cars, really satisfied a hunger of Americans for a performance car.
And America had one hell of an appetite. 1955 was GM's best ever year. They sold 1.7 million Chevys, and no one in the car business had ever shifted that much metal before. Ford and Chrysler were left standing at the stoplight while the boys with the bow tie burnt some rubber. But the best was yet to come. Don't just look at it, drive it, said the sales pitch for the 57 Chevys. But the cars were undoubtedly a sight to behold. And the best looking of the bunch was this beauty, the two-door Bel Air Sports Coupe. The 57s were styled lower, so they'd look longer. And the whole car was kind of canted forward to give the impression it was running 100 on the interstate when it was sat still in the drive-in. But undoubtedly the distinguishing feature of the 57s was this piece of ribbed aluminium, which probably cost about $1, but looked like $1 million. Buyers who were lured by the looks were convinced by the car's get up and go. However, Chevy dealers soon had to get used to coping with calls from irate customers. Not because they didn't like the car, but because they couldn't work out where to put the gas. Can you guess? Well, it's in there. I believe the expression is neat.
Well, bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm itching like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting wild as a bug. I'm in love. I'm all shook up.
Sweet, smooth and sassy. That was Chevy's slogan for 57. And they weren't just whistling Dixie, if you know what I'm saying. The sheer choice available to the customer was bewildering. There were no less than 4 different ways of shifting gears and 4 engine options. At the bottom of the range, a mild 140 horsepower Blue Flame 6. And at the top, a mighty 283 horsepower Super Turbo Fire V8 with ramjet fuel injection and triple turbine turbo glide transmission. I think the guys in the ad department might have been eating just a bit too much raw red meat about that time. There were 28 different colour combinations for the outside, including this livid Matador red on the Bel Air. And there were 4 different kinds of interior, which I think you'll agree is very earthy kit. Just about the only thing that wasn't an option are the furry dice. On a 57 Chevy, they're compulsory.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have.
5 million. They sold 5 million Chevys in 3 years. And maybe that's why so many were simply thrown away. But today, an enormous industry is dedicated to restoring this 50s original. But the big business is in reproduction parts. Classic Chevy take up to 1,000 phone calls a day, process 400,000 orders a year. And that means a business worth $3 to $4 million a month. Now that is big. In fact, if I started taking parts off the shelves back there, by the time I get to here, I could have built myself a classic Chevy. The 57 Chevy isn't perfect, but then neither were Elvis, JFK or Marilyn. And America has the same enduring love for this car that it has for them. You see, here, you don't get to become an idol until you've proved you're only too human.
Well, we're gonna rock all our blues away.
When Aston Martin launched the DB7 in 1994, it was a breath of fresh air for the Newport Pagnell company, giving the tired Aston Mark new momentum. But the wind was taken out of their sails just 2 years later by Jaguar's look-alike XK8. Although with nearly 100 horsepower less, it wasn't really a competitor. Until they introduced the XKR version, which, like the Aston, has a supercharged V8, produces more power and is still over £30,000 cheaper. Now, Aston are fighting back. They've launched a range of works-prepared options. Take your DB7 to Newport Pagnell and they'll fit 4 new wheels, some improved elliptically grooved disc brakes, 6 new high-tech Coney dampers, and mount your steering rack on bits of Prestolon, which all helps it to do, well, this.
I think we'll start with the traction control off.
This wide open airfield really is a place where I can find out just how good this works prepared DB7 is. When the DB7 first came out, I have to say I wasn't that impressed with its handling. It rolled too much, there wasn't enough feedback through the steering, the brakes were a bit squirmy, and they faded. And I'm happy to say that Aston have really looked at all these points, and these new Coney shock absorbers give the car a whole new poise. So I can turn in, I can feel what's happening. Oh, catch the slides, power it out. Your trust in the car is enhanced by the all-important feel of grip being greatly improved by the new, more pliant rack-mounting material. Now, those elliptical grooves in the discs aren't just for good looks. They do the same job as the cross-drilling normally seen in competition discs. But the point is, they do it more quietly. So now the DB7 has got very effective non-fade discs. But it's not just the handling and braking that has been improved, because you can add this body kit as well to give the DB7 a much more aggressive and sporting look. Of course, all this doesn't come cheap. The body kit alone is the best part of £9,000, and the full suspension workover an extra 17, pushing the price of this DB7 up to a whopping £115,000. Now, the engine hasn't been tweaked at all, so it's still not going to be faster in a straight line than the more powerful XKR. But at least it has got a manual gearbox for the enthusiastic driver to enjoy. But the main thing is that the handling of the DB7 is now something that Aston Martin lovers can rightly be proud of. Okay, so you can almost buy 2 XKRs for the price of this works-prepared DB7. But what you now get with this Aston is a car which is not only far more exclusive, but one which now out-handles the big cat. I wonder what Jaguar's answer to this is going to be.
Well, funnily enough, there is one Jag that's also been substantially upgraded. Okay, it's a 25-year-old model, but the modifications on this put the Aston to shame. You get 2 new engines, giving a 25% increase in power, GPS, terrain reference navigation, oh, and a thermal imager. And if you fancy one, the upgrade package alone will set you back a few £1 million.
This is the Jaguar T2B. Stuffing loads of gizmos into these 25-year-old planes may seem a bit like putting a CD multi-changer in an Aston 7, but in reality, it means we get 50 viable frontline fighters for another 10 years, for a fraction of the price of Manchester United.
Okay.
If you've got the right stuff, they'll actually pay you to do this. But don't even think about it if you're looking for an easy ride. My machine will beat Tiff's into the weeds when it comes to performance, because I have a top speed of 700 miles an hour. I've also got 30,000 pounds of thrust and can pull 6G in a bend, which makes it a far better handling machine than the Aston. Unlucky Tiff.
Yes, that's all very well up there in the air, but bring that Jaguar down here on the road and I'll sort it out. A straight drag race, Vicky and her Jaguar Grand Tourer against me and my dinky little DB7. Give it your best.
You've got no chance, boy. No chance. Okay, time to go.
The Aston's pulling away.
No, he's getting away from me. No!
120. 130. Easy peasy pudding and...
Be a sucker. Eat my jet
Next week, the new Volkswagen Bentley. Vicky adds up the Peugeot 206, and Quentin trawls the small ends for a bargain banger.